Okay, hello. Sorry, maybe better. Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be here. So it's Googley and me, Florian, and online is Nicholas and also.
Hello.
Perfect. So we are the three co-chairs from the diagnostic working group, and as you might imagine, the diagnostic is dependent on a lot of other working groups like the standardization, what you have heard, or the common repositories. And our focus is a little bit more to bring the diagnostic really to the here, yeah. No, yeah. So really to bring the diagnostic, so the whole repertoire sequencing from the research part to the clinic. And the question is how we can support, promote it. And the question came up 3 years ago in the last meeting in Genoa. And we got together and thought that we should provide a working group where things like diagnostic can be discussed. And this is what we did. And there was a lot of interest in the first meetings, and also what we will later come back of. Opinion paper came out, and it really is to promote the diagnostic, prognostic, and the monitoring purpose. So there's a lot of different areas what we can do, but there's also a lot of bottlenecks still there. So what really prevents to move faster in this direction, and what can we do as the AIR community, or provide a forum where things like this can be discussed. So really the goal was what you have heard so far already is contributing also to the chapter, as well as providing a platform for these discussions. What we figured out that a lot is was a lot of benefits in discussing diagnostic related topics, and to make it more public and not only keep it within the working group, and provide a more formal place with also with key opinion leader, with a podcast series which got started and off the ground, which is really nice, as well as during the COVID time, there was some internal presentation and discussion about COVID-related diagnostic data gathering and just exchange of information. With that, I will give it over to Googley.
Yeah, thanks, Florian. The podcast here is one of our most exciting things that we've accomplished. And the 4th episode of the podcast just went out at the beginning of this month. And so if you haven't taken a look at that, you'll notice in your folder, you'll have a little sticker with a QR code on it that takes you straight to the podcast. I'm not saying you should stick this on everything around you, but if you want to stick this around, we would love to get more traffic. The paper, as Florian mentioned, went out in Frontiers. And then, as I think most of the other working groups are going to talk about, contributing to the book chapter was one of the highlights of our past period as well. And specifically on the podcast, this was largely headed up by Ulrich and Susanna, and I'll open it up to them in a moment to talk about that if they were able to get into presenter mode. But one of the most interesting pieces to call out here, it's very small, so I apologize. But if you take a look at the bottom left of this slide, you'll notice that the first week listens for each of these podcasts has been growing pretty rapidly. So it's gaining steam, and more people are jumping in as new episodes go live. So we're excited to continue that trajectory and look forward to new podcast episodes. And Nicholas, yeah, do you want to add anything here?
Not really. I mean, data-wise, I think you said it pretty well, and we are quite excited that we could get everyone on board. It was a crazy idea in the beginning, but it was interesting that this was one of the ideas where everyone immediately said, "Well, that is something we should do." And I also think it's very nice that it is kind of a collaboration also within other working groups and subcommittees of the AIR community, and it's really like a community effort.
And we especially need to thank Nina and Lindsay for being our guinea pigs for the first 2 episodes and working through all of the learning as we understood how to record and promote and interview on these podcasts. So thanks to both of you as well as of course to Anton and Jacob Landville, our most recent podcasts. So moving to future plans. Hopefully Susanna or Ulrich were able to get on here to talk about that, as they are our proposed new co-chairs for the working group. Susanna or Ulrich, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Let me see if I can advance the slide to our future plans here. And I'll hand it off to you.
I am not seeing the slides now. Are you sharing your screen?
Oh, can we share the slides on the remote view? I'm not seeing them on the laptop either. There we go. Susanna, are you still there?
Yes, here I am. Okay, so I think Ulrich is in the chat. I don't think he can talk. So correct me if I say something wrong or I forget something, Ulrich, in the chat. So the idea for this upcoming year is to continue working on the podcast. Ulrich is working now on with Ching and Nidhi on a special episode on AI, machine learning, and AIRR-seq, and he has many ideas for the upcoming episodes. And I don't want to, do a spoiler here of all the exciting things that are to come. We also want to work with Legal and Ethics, the Communications Committee, to prepare to organize an event focused on regulatory aspects that I think are of interest for many of the groups in the AIR community. And we want to coordinate a white paper related to that in response to regulatory bodies and how to include AIR-seq in regulatory processes. Okay, so do you want me to continue with this? I just didn't see the slides. This is the first time I see them. So I'm kind of, reading them along.
Susanna, I mean, I can
Did you want to take this one?
Can also take over, at least.
Yes.
I have seen them before. So basically, I mean, the long-term vision, it did not change that much from when we started the group. So we still want to promote the vision that we described in the opinion piece. And we want to, also act as an umbrella for the clinic-oriented members of several working groups, because many working groups have aspects that touch on diagnostics or monitoring or therapeutics. And so we are happy to, receive these members or also receive feedback from them and be also a link between the clinic-oriented members of the AIR community and regulatory agencies regarding clinical application. If someone could go, oh yeah. So for the last 3 years, Googley, Florian and I have been co-chairs, and we've done this with a lot of heart, and we liked it, but we thought it might be a good idea to pass the torch on to onto someone else, simply to get some new aspects and some new ideas into the group. And we were very lucky and we're very thankful that Ulrich and Susanna have volunteered. And of course, I mean, this is the community, so you still have to vote on this, but we would ask you to consider Ulrich Sterfbo, who is from Bochum, Germany, and focuses on T-cell immunology and transplantation virus infection. And you've already heard from Susanna a couple of seconds ago. She's a bioinformatician at Yale at Steve Kleinstein's lab and focuses on B-cell and the incantation suite in the analysis of AIR-seq, and is already a co-leader in the communication subcommittee, but needs some more work. And so she was kind enough to to volunteer as co-chairs. But as I said, you still have to work on vote on this, but those would be the suggestions from our side.
Great, thank you. And with that, we have 2 minutes for questions, or maybe that was 2 questions. Felix, yeah. Yeah, the best way, so the question from Felix was, yes.
Yeah.
The question from Felix was, among inviting others to come and join the working group, the question was, how can people suggest new topics for the podcast? And the best route for that is to come to one of the working group meetings. So the information about how to join is on the AIRR website. There's an email address there, I believe. If you come to those meetings, there's discussion about the podcast topics and future guests. And we lean heavily on the members of the working group to help us find both guests to come onto the podcast as well as participate in the creation of the content.
I have a question, and that is about your financing through the Antibody Society. This is a finance question, kind of, for the AIR community, but the AIR community should have its own money that it gets through, sponsorships and other things. Is there nothing to support you for buying microphones and stuff like that? Have you all looked within the community before going at that?
That's a great question. So the question was, did we look inside of the AIR community for funding for the podcast before going outside? And I actually don't know the answer to that question. Maybe Susanna or Ulrich maybe has more context on that.
We already have funding now from the Antibody Society, which, the AIR community is part of the Antibody Society. So it's somehow.
And it's Pam here, and I'll just jump in to confirm that the Antibody Society has been funding the podcast, all the expenses.
I understand that, but I'm just saying that the AIR community is kind of a separate thing, an independent thing within, and it's just something to consider that we look to ourselves first, possibly, before going to have, but not necessarily.
No, that's a great idea. And I think that's a good thing for us to explore. The suggestion was to explore the opportunities inside of the community for funding. For clarity, this is funding things like microphones so we get high quality recordings that we can send to participants that help us make the best quality podcast. But it's a good thing. We should look into that, yeah.
Great.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.